We're going to cover it all coming up with Max Keiser, hit some of the other headlines that are at Infowars.com. Max Keiser, inventor of virtual trading technology used widely around the world, successful stockbroker, author, TV host with Al Jazeera, BBC, RT, you name it. Max, go ahead. You got interrupted by the break. You were getting into what's happening with the technicals, what's going on worldwide, and the preparation for collapse we see. Please continue.
Yeah, imagine you're trying to sell a kilo of cocaine, okay? Now, what you do, we know from watching movies like about drug dealers that they cut the cocaine with something like, whatever, baby laxative or whatever they put in there to make the kilo appear like 5 kilos or 10 kilos. Now, what's happened in the bond market is that 20 years ago, you had a certain amount of AAA-rated sovereign government debt, the good stuff, pure government AAA-rated bonds. But for 20 years now, they keep adding junk bonds to the mix. They put the junk bonds in our pension funds. They put the junk bonds in our corporations. They put the junk bonds in our municipalities. So when you cut, any drug dealer knows if you cut, eventually you end up with nothing. You can't sell it. It's garbage. And that's where the bond market is today. It's been cut so many times with junk bonds and garbage and false accounting and misallocation that now the global bond market is completely polluted. There's nothing that nobody wants on these sovereign bonds anymore. To give you an idea how bad the situation is, the U.S. 10-year Treasury bond hasn't traded, the yield hasn't been this low for 240 years. That's right. The entire history of America, there's never been a period where the bonds have been so hated. What about the United Kingdom? Well, in the 300 years since the Bank of England, similar situation. They've never had the yields at these low levels because nobody wants this paper anymore, no matter how much they force them to buy it. And what we're seeing, in my view, Alex, is that the social unrest, the violence in America and around the world is the result of a financial dislocation and a financial problem. So when people say, well, when's the big collapse coming? The answer is that it's happening right now. That's what all this violence is about. It's about towns and municipalities and societies falling apart. They can't pay their bills anymore. The sewage is being turned off. The basic services are being turned off. Here in London, they're firing firemen, policemen, teachers. They're being forced out of London because they've run out of money. Now, the bond dealers, the people who create those bonds, the $200 trillion worth of debt, to hide the fact that society is breaking apart, they get a fee, and they are fabulously wealthy. You mentioned Warren Buffett. He's a good example. He's in the business of selling the bonds. He's in the business of expanding the debt, so he gets wealthy. But everyone else is falling apart, and we see this incredible rise of violence. In my view, it's beyond the race question. The race question is a smokescreen. The real truth is that you've got a cadre of bankers on Wall Street in the city of London, here in London, who have destroyed the economy, and people don't know where to turn. They become violent, and the race motivation is a smokescreen for class war between bankers and everybody else. And we see it now in the bond markets falling apart. So what does that mean to the average person? It means that interest rates, which are the inverse of a bond price, start to go up. So your mortgage suddenly goes up 5 or 6%.
And we know real interest rates are starting to creep up, but the elite still give themselves 0% interest so they can consolidate power at a real detriment to the real economy, but they don't seem to care and then put out false economic numbers telling us everything's peachy keen. How long can this go on?
Well, we've seen a couple of examples of different scenarios. So in Iceland, they said no to the bankers. They let their currency collapse, and they've restarted their economy, and now they're the fastest-growing economy in Europe. In Greece, they are going to do a deal with the European Central Bank and the IMF to do this extend and pretend. They're going to load them up with more debt anyway, and they're going to continue being a vassal state to Germany and the ECB and the IMF. So they're going to use debt slavery in Greece. That's what it looks like. Greece looks like they're going to fail in standing up to the slave masters at the IMF. They are not going to do in Iceland. So they will continue being a slave. So the European Central Bank essentially absorbs all of Greece's debt. They'll take on another, 400 or 500 billion.
Stay there and
euros
explain
in
it to us. Long segment coming up. And I agree with you. The collapse has been incremental for a while. It's going quicker now. Will there be some big events like Ron Paul's talking about? Max Keiser's our guest. I'm Alex Jones. Stay with us.